Well, welcome to this final episode of 2023 when we reflect on the year that's just passed and we look ahead to 2024. And we've got interviews with a number of old and new friends of the show with updates and reflections, and I get to talk all of this through with my friend, with my collaboration partner, Sarah Thornely from SUP Junkie UK, who is a ex-GB national champion to boot, the voice and face of the sport through race live streams in Great Britain for international competitions, and a main writer for SUP Mag UK and a number of other publications. Sarah, welcome back to SUP FM.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's just great to be here, back on the podcast. And we've seen each other a couple of times this year, done some pretty epic things. It's been a great year of racing. Always excited. I think this year there's been a bit of a change up in who's leading the field here and abroad. But yeah, it's really great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. And really looking forward to this episode when we'll talk about our slant on the year 2023, and we'll cover some of the highlights and reflections of another year where SUP has sort of basically fulfilled another step in terms of its maturity after its incredible growth since COVID. One of the things about getting mature, as I've discovered to my cost, is you need to sort of make tough decisions, and there's lots of sort of interesting problems and so on that we need to sort of sort through. There are lots of things that have popped up. We've got a new national governing body, British Canoeing. We're in early stages in terms of our relationship with that governing body, and there's lots of items I guess we could really get on the agenda and we really need to get after as a bit of a priority. So I'd be interested in your thoughts as to my very short list of the key elements that we really need to be getting after. Particularly important at the moment with the rapid growth of the sport is not to lose those paddlers, those novice paddlers, and to help them move into other areas of the sport and to really get them involved. I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on that, Sarah, and the sort of things that we can do in order to make that happen.
Well, that's a great question, and let's make it clear that they are the joint national governing body as well, Simon. But yeah, we're excited. We're looking forward, and we really hope that we really want this to work. I mean, that's the bottom line, isn't it? We need a national governing body, and let's be fair, it might not be everybody's choice, but it is what it is, and we want it to work. And they've got a huge number of leisure paddlers, social paddlers, huge, running to their tens of thousands. And wouldn't it be lovely if we could convert them all to my love, which is racing, or just get them out and about and adventuring more, learning more, being more proficient at what they do, and just learning more about the sport. And we hold British Canoeing accountable to get those leisure paddlers and transfer them over to many other disciplines. And if that's racing, happy days for me. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there are lots of people who are taking their paddleboard down to the sea or, onto the river, onto the lake for the first time. And without providing that momentum to move people on with the sport, be it, racing and adventure are the two obvious candidates. That there's so many other angles, though, that you can involve people in, not least the sort of social side, surfing and so on. And I think it's really important for people to understand that it doesn't necessarily need, all the gear, all the specialist gear in order to do any of those. You can do, any of those on the majority of the general use SUP. I mean, you won't be at competition or international level doing it, but it's enough to get a start. So that's sort of one area I think which would be great to reinforce in terms of 2024 and the governing body's activity. The second one on my list is the support for SUP schools and groups as well, which is another really important one because they provide all of that local experience and that momentum to get people onto the water. I don't know, I mean, you've been involved in quite a few groups, haven't you, Sarah, over the years across the country, and they really are an important reinforcement to keeping people paddling.
Yes, and it's something that Kristen Thomas recently brought up, and she said we don't have clubs in the USA. They just don't have them like we do, and clubs are so important for your paddling skill and more importantly your fun. You know, paddling with others, learning from others, trying different kit, having that lovely support group. I've been with the Real Blue Chip Supper Club for well, from the moment I started paddling, so over 11 years, and we were out this week for dinner. I absolutely adore all those people, and what I've learned from them is, I can't really put into words. It's great just to have that community. And if we can get some of these individual paddlers who maybe just paddle out with a friend, I'd always encourage them, go and find a local club or a group and go and have some fun with them because there's a lot of fun to be had out there. And you, as I say, you'll learn things, safety, kit. We all want to try a new board. You know, if you're on a 10-foot six, what a great opportunity to go and try a 14-foot race board with your club. You know, you'll get away with it there. You won't everywhere else.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
I think a club and a group is really good for your paddling.
Absolutely. And don't forget to try someone else's paddle as well, because I tried your paddle on Race for Rivers, your Oscar Propulsion, and it was night and day, really. There's lots of opportunities to do that. And I think, one of the things that attracted me to the sport particularly is the sort of ethos, the aloha type factor, the fact that it's inclusive, and there's a brotherhood and sisterhood on the water which we all share. So I think it's really important as well that it isn't lost. So that's attracting new paddlers into the sport in different ways. This is supporting clubs and groups and schools and so on. And just to lob a huge hand grenade in here, the final one I would say is safety.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going to just put a bit of a restriction on me here to start with, and by proxy you as well, Sarah, because I know that it's something that we both feel very passionate about. And one of the really odd things about safety is that on one side of the equation there's lots of people who are very passionate about safety, and honestly I don't think we deserve any form of badge or award for that. There are lots and lots of people who feel the same way as we do, but it's trying to engage with people who are the other end of the equation in terms of being passionate, i.e. not even recognising that it's a need or that there's any risk involved. So certainly, as I've bent your ear on multiple occasions, you're aware that sort of that beginner mindset needs to start with a bit of education. So that's certainly where I would point my focus and my desire for 2024 across the industry. I don't know. I'm going to say I don't know whether you've got any feelings on it. I know you've got feelings. What are they, Sarah?
Yeah, well, we could have a whole podcast or two about this, couldn't we?
Mm,
Safety, and we do bang our drum quite a lot about it. We're very passionate, as you say. So are many others, and I think this is where hopefully the national governing body can step in and really step up to the mark and make a difference because they've got a huge amount of people and. They've done this for canoeing, kayaking. You know, those guys are safety experts, aren't they?
mm,
Um, and let's do it for SUP. You know, let's get that information way down to those leisure paddlers that they have hundreds of thousands of and beyond. So we obviously attended the safety conference, and that was very good. We need things to happen, and we need them to happen quickly. We're all aware that 2024 is just around the corner. As soon as spring starts, you'll have all those people dragging those boards out of their garages and getting back on the water, and they might not have a clue, and that's not their fault. I didn't know what an offshore wind is. I'm not a sea person. I've not had any experience on yachts or rowing or anything, so I had to learn, and I'm not sure I still know everything. Well, I don't know everything, but it'd be really great to, get British Canoeing to really step up and sort the safety out for getting that information, filtering down
mm.
to those people who need it the most. And it can happen to all of us. I've been very lucky, but I had an accident in my 10th year of paddling, which was just a slip on some mud and a couple of broken ribs, and that was complacency. So it can happen to all of us. It's not just those people who've just started their journey, but a really, really important subject. Let's not bang on about it anymore, because we could for another 2 hours.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And we got more exciting things to talk
We
about.
do. Right. Okay. So let's move on to those more exciting things. And this year we collaborated on a really exciting race. Actually, it was SUP 12, and the creation of this race came from Brendan Prince of Above Water charity fame. He obviously paddleboarded around Great Britain, multiple Guinness World Record holder, and so on, and really inspirational individual is Brendan. And he came back from last paddler standing competition in Florida last year. More of that later, by the way. And inspired by the race director, he created this new long form race. SUP 12, the clue's sort of in the title, but would you like to just take us through the format of that race, Sarah?
Yeah, what a great race. I mean, we were excited, but we didn't really know how it was going to work. A little bit like last paddle standing, but these events seem to be holding their own in terms of excitement, level of participation. Not only those paddling, but people watching and listening. So SUP 12, 12 hours basically. How far can you paddle? Sounds simple, doesn't it? You get on the water. Actually, you can get on the water whenever you like. The race starts at 7 a.m., finishes at 7 p.m. It was down in the beautiful Bay of Torbay. So there was a course set of a certain distance, and you had to start whenever you wanted. So you could start at 7 a.m., you could start at 9 a.m. if you wanted. Most people started at 7 a.m. And off you paddle. You paddle your lap, you come back to shore, you get off your board, and very, very cleverly, you have to go past your, what should we call it, your little station, your seat, your food, your drink, and you run up the beach and you go round and you come back to your board. And you have to do that every lap. And that's where the mind mess comes in, because it's not just an endurance race. It's a race. Can you imagine being on, I don't know, your 50th lap, or having done 50k, and you're having to go past that feeding station? You're knackered and you're desperate for a drink, or you're desperate to stop, and you've got to push yourself to go past that station. It's a brilliant, brilliant concept. So many people just went for it and just wouldn't stop. And many people sat and had a bit of lunch with a friend. Some people took a little bit of time off. It was just a brilliant, brilliant event. And we were lucky enough to be doing the live commentary for 12 hours straight, probably 13 or 14 actually by the time we finished. It was a real pleasure to have you on the mic with me, Simon.
Well,
I think we did a pretty good job, but it was just a brilliant event.
It was great fun, wasn't it? And yeah, we riffed pretty well off each other, and I've got to say, absolute testament to you, because you had only just recovered a few days before from the dreaded COVID. So coming and then doing 12 hours on the beach was quite a phenomenal endurance feat just by you. But, you're right, it was great. You mentioned friends. I mean, that's the other great draw when you're sort of going through the sort of feeding station point. There are friends, relatives, dogs and so on, all very pleased to see you. So it's sort of all about not being distracted. And of course, it's also a very tactical game. If you spend too much time eating, then that affects your lap time. But if you don't spend enough time eating, then that affects your lap time. So it's a real challenge, and it was great fun. With a long form race like that, you tend to get to know people in far more detail than in a race where people just pitch up, do the race, and then sort of go home an hour or so later. And for me, a couple of key names. Bruce Smith won the overall competition. It wasn't graded into any classifications, which is going to be changing this year. And Emily Evans also was an absolutely awesome competitor, and I think pretty much everyone at the end of the day looked like sort of empty vessels. They certainly looked like they had done sort of 12 hours of solid work there.
They did, and not everybody made 12 hours. You had those who just had to physically stop or just wanted to stop, but and then you had those who really shot off, and they were just determined to go as fast as possible for as long as possible. You had the others who were very measured in their paddling and took a more thoughtful approach, maybe, and let's do it at this pace only. It was incredible. Bruce was a machine, and the lovely, lovely, beautiful thing was that he started off with the love of his life, Karen, who paddled with him, and they paddled together. And it was great because Karen is not that confident on the sea. She doesn't particularly she doesn't like race starts. Her beach starts are okay, but she's not a great lover of race starts. So it's really lovely to see them supporting each other and paddling together. And then Bruce was just a machine. I mean, he comes from that background, and over the last few years, we've really seen him at the sort of the 10K races and the that kind of level, and now he's absolutely stepped up his game back to doing what he used to do. And Emily Evans, I mean, as you say, there was one winner, and thankfully that will be changed, but she was absolutely at the top, and she pushed and pushed and pushed herself. Again, she's someone who's got endurance under her belt. She's got medals for whitewater rafting, so I hate to say it, she's a proper athlete. In my head, she's just got this absolute mindset. She's competed internationally. That's what makes her a proper athlete. And she just didn't stop. And she just wanted to almost get to that, up to that level. I think she came in overall fourth. But, if there'd been obviously a male and female winner, she definitely would have come,
First,
way up there at number one. And the other thing that I'd like to see changed in that race, is the no kneeling rule. There wasn't a rule for no kneeling, and I think there should have been. That's just a little chat I'm going to have with Brendan, because that's fairly important when you're racing. And it was a race, but it was just brilliant. It was utterly brilliant, and we got to know it's very bonding, really bonding, as you say, when you've got those 12 hours of paddling with people and people passing you all the time. It's a really lovely bonding experience. Great to make new friends, and a beautiful part of the country as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic. Quite an experience. And this year, I think, based on last year's experience, we had a lot of people watching it, and this year is going to be bigger and better, and there's more classification. So if you want to find out more about SUP 12, all links will be in the show notes or in the video notes if you're watching this on YouTube. Right, okay, so moving on into the solid race area. And Sarah, this is probably where I'm going to hand the mic over to you to a large degree. But if we cover the UK GB racing scene first of all, obviously there are a number of races throughout the UK. Some, within the GB SUP area sphere of operations, but they ran a number of races across the country, splitting into flat water series and ocean series. So could you just talk us through the competitions this year and some of the performers?
Yeah, I've literally written out the competition and who won, because there's some, it's great, isn't it? For many years we have, people who win all the time, and they're always at the top, and then you get years where you get these new names pop in and you're like, well, who is that? But hang on, they've just won the series standings. It's great. I love it. I love that there are these new names, and especially with the younger names as well, the juniors, because we need more of them, basically. So we always start the year with Cardiff, and Cardiff is brilliant. I mean, it's almost like my second home. I love it up there. And you had some fantastic racing around the bay. What they did for the flat water as well, GB SUP increased the length of the distance, because in a line with international competition, most of our races used to be 10K. They're now about 16. So it just means that these athletes who are, putting themselves out there to qualify need to be qualifying at the right distance. So Cardiff, it was Ginny Betts and Hector Jessel who won. So really great performances. Hector is still a junior this year. And Ginny is not a junior, but she's back this year. I don't think she did much racing last year, but definitely back on form this year. The second flat water was Buell Water. We had a couple of races with the GB SUP that were cancelled due to weather and other issues as well, and obviously that's not anybody's fault, but it does sort of throw a bit of a mix in, doesn't it? It sort of makes people a little bit unsettled. But some of these cancellations, well, all of the cancellations were completely out of GB SUP's hands. Buell Water, which is a reservoir. I think it was pretty spicy there. I didn't actually go, but apparently it was windy, waves, very challenging. And again, Ginny travelled up for that event and won. And Dom Hook from, I think Dom is from sort of Bay Sup area, that club area. He took it for the men. So great paddling from those. And in looking through the race series, I couldn't actually find the third flat water. That's a terrible admission, but I have to admit it. I can't find it. So straight onto the Ocean Tech, which is again they changed it up a little bit. So Ocean Tech would be a distance and a tech, again making it more challenging because if you go abroad and you want to be up against the best in the world, you need to know what you're doing. So we had Falmouth. Now, Falmouth was brilliant because it was the qualifier. I'll come back to that in a minute. But you had who was winning there? Overall, it was Blue Ewer and Emily Evans. So Emily was, properly on form. She didn't go on actually to compete internationally because she's had other things that she's had to deal with. All good, positive stuff. But Blue obviously came back because he wanted to qualify for the world. So that was brilliant. He basically between them they won the sprints, the tech, and got themselves qualified. So that was amazing. The second race was the Beadnell Belter, which is up with Anna Little and her club, the Northern Sup Race Team, which is where Bruce and Karen are part of. And actually, it's great. Actually, it was quite a tiny event. But it was won by James Little. Now, James Little is Anna's son, and we've been watching him since 2018. So he's now 17. And he won his first, I think it was his first event. So he's definitely one to watch. He's a junior, so long may he remain in the sport. And the other new name, Annabelle Page, won there for the ladies. Now, Annabelle is a sup surfer, has been doing really well on the sup surf scene. She lives up north, and she won her first event, so that was brilliant. And then the last event in the Ocean Tech Series was Norfolk, held with, I think it was with lovely Sam running that event, and a new name which for the men was Jan Pospisil, and the lovely Natalie Rendell won for the ladies, so Martin Rendell's wife. So that's the sort of and the series winners, which you can, if you want to have a look, you can look at, if you Google GB SUP web scorer, you can find all the results going back to about 2017. So it's really good to go and look at the times and see what's going on. But the series winners for those events for the flat water were Ginny and Hector, and for the ocean was Annabelle Page and Jan Pospisil. So really great stuff from them. But going back to Falmouth, Falmouth was split into sprints, distance and tech, and obviously prone were also trying to qualify. We must never forget about prone because I'm in absolute awe as to how they do that, either on their knees or lying down. I mean, it's such a skill. Have you ever tried it, Simon?
I haven't. No,
Me neither.
Skinny boards, I think, is the thing. Just climbing a board, but it's a proper grind, isn't it? And huge respect for people doing that.
Yeah, very, very tippy boards. But the overall results for Falmouth were great, and it was such an exciting event. It's such a lovely event down there. The setting is great. It's on Gilly Beach, so everything is off from the beach. We actually had a couple of British canoeing people come down to watch, and I think they were mildly impressed, very impressed with what they saw, with these people, especially with the beach runs and the, coming back around the flag and everything. So the sprints, so bearing in mind you get 2 who qualify for most of the disciplines. It was Blue Ewer and Will Keatley. So young Will Keatley, he's just out of juniors now, I believe. So he qualified. And for the ladies, we had Emily first, Holly second, and Ginny third. Obviously, Emily didn't go to Europe or the world. So Holly and Ginny went too. For the distance, it was Ginny and Marie, which was great. We'll talk about Marie later. And Blue and Hector Jessel. And again, Hector was, because he's a junior, we had Ben Moram as well, who'd come over from Fuerteventura. He's a British young man. He lives in Spain. He trains with the powerhouses that are Spain, but he does really want to compete and qualify for England, and he did. So he was very, very excited. For the tech, it was Emily again won, Ginny came second, Marie came third, and for the boys, it was Blue, Ewer, and Ben Moram again. So we had a really good mix of people. So it wasn't just Blue and Marie, or
Mm.
Blue and Ginny. It was a really good mix of people. And then going just lastly with the prone guys, Andrew Byatt, who's been paddling for years and years and years and does incredibly well. He qualified for the tech and the distance. We had Jessica Georgelin, who qualified for the distance, and Molly Roothouse. Both those ladies I hadn't met before. And if you see Molly Roothouse on the beach, she just looks like an Amazonian from Australia. You can just tell she's got athlete written all over her. So she qualified for the tech, which was really exciting. And then it was great to obviously go and watch them in France. But yeah, some cracking results, different results, not all the same. So, and there are loads of people just nipping at their heels. They're standouts, the likes of Blue and, Ginny, Holly, Marie, they're at the top of their game. But you've got these people just nipping at their heels, really. I think it'll be a few years yet, but they're really trying hard, and there's some very exciting athletes out there, and lots of people training very, very hard as well. So it's great stuff.
Absolutely, and
So that's the sort of GB SUP.
yeah, that's great, and that was sort of reflected in the international competition as well. And I'm probably going to mess up the order on these ones, but there were various competitions this year. Obviously, the big ones being the ISA, the International Surfing Association, and the ICF, which we'll talk about a bit later on, which was in Thailand this year. We also had Euro SUP. As well. So this was championship this year in Portugal in October, and as you say, there's a powerhouse in Spain at the moment, a really, really strong Spanish team who actually won the overall there. But SB Barreros, it is the leader, I guess, of that. Certainly a prominent and consistent performer. We saw her at the APP in London last year, where she, just basically pushed April, and also there was a very strong performance by the French team as well. Melanie Lafenêtre being the one of the prime movers in that team, but very, very strong French team in there. And our juniors came through in that. Hector Jessel came fourth on the junior long distance race, and Will Keatley fourth in the men's sprint. So really good, and you could see one ex-junior, one still junior, really pushing the envelope in terms of performance, which is really good. So moving on to Les Sables d'Olonne in the ISA Championships. I know you went along to that one. It's a beautiful part of France, absolutely spectacular. They had surfing and obviously the sort of conventional SUP events there. Obviously wonderful food and maybe the occasional glass of wine in there as well. So just talk us through that event, because that's just such a spectacular place to paddle.
Oh, Simon, it was just incredible. We've actually been there before. I went there with Blue Chip. We went on a surfing holiday, so I knew, I knew a little bit about it. We'd visited the Sablé d'Olonne when we were there, home of the tin sardines, for sure, and the round the world yacht
Yeah.
races, and a lot of round the world races run from there. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful place to stay. It's got this fantastic beach. It's huge, very, very, very flat sand. So when the tide comes in and out, it comes in and out pretty quickly. Um, Really, as you say, lots of lovely places to eat and drink, and it's really nice to be around all the athletes. You see them in the town, and say hi to the people that you know and get to know people that you don't know. We had the surfing first. We hadn't actually gone over there to really work. We'd gone for a holiday and to support our great friend Sarah Perkins was in the SUP surf competition. She qualified earlier in the year. So we'd sort of just said, let's go on a road trip. But we very quickly got caught up in, you know, few live feeds and interviews and just trying to get stuck in. So it was great fun. And the ISA team, the last ISA event I went to was our first sort of international competition in 2018. And I have to say, this was a massive step up in terms of delivering live feeds, the quality. And actually, I don't think I did do live feeds because I thought these guys have got this. They know what they're doing. They've got drones, they've got cameras all over the place. They're such professionals. We had Mathieu on the beach. We had Anthony Baylor being the race director. You just had a huge team. Even who else was there? Casper Steinfath was there on the mic. Yeah, you just had a huge team of very professional people who loved the sport, and so we just thought we're definitely not doing a live feed. We know when to step back. But it was a really fabulous event with hundreds of paddlers. I mean, it's not anything on the scale of the ICF because they have qualifying events and only a certain amount of people can go. But they were pretty full to capacity. And watching the racing from the beach, there was a huge crowd of because it's such a beautiful beach and it's a sort of seaside town that you've got a lot of people spectating as well. So it made it really exciting. Goodness knows what they thought of the sort of the tech race, and the tech race was classic with the waves breaking on the the hammer buoy, and it was brilliant. And not everybody got their own way in terms of results but you had some absolute standout performances from the international crowd. I'm talking about our crowd as well because we were brilliant out there and did very, very well. But the likes of Shuri Araki, Shrimpy, to see him almost get 3 out of 3 was just really, really exciting. He didn't do it in the end. He didn't make the sprints, but he won the distance and he won the tech. And he is just the most beautiful, sort of humble being as well. He's just lovely. I mean, it's so sweet. He even thanked me for doing what I do, which is just lovely. He's just won. I've just gone and asked him for a photograph or whatever, and he's just said thank you so much for what you do, and that is lovely. That's the kind of people that they are. And then again in the distance and the tech, Espe Barreras, just smashed it. I mean, it was just incredible to watch. And as I say, the tech was proper tech racing, in and out of the surf, in and out of the water, running around the flags with with their boards, and we were running up and down the beach. The whole English team were running up. Well, all the teams were running up and down the beach. So every time the team came in off the water to go around a flag, we'd be absolutely there, shouting our team on. And in the sprints, you had Noik Gariou from France and Taryn King from South Africa. Taryn King, pitches up with her 2 small children, on her hip, and then she passes them over to her husband, and off she goes and races, and she won the sprint. So really, really good to see, and Noik was just so ecstatic to win that as well. Him and his younger brother Vajek are, just a force to be reckoned with. So amazing racing from all the people. And France won the overall, which it was in France. You'd really want them to do that, wouldn't you? Spain came second with Japan third, and England came 6th overall, which was incredible because there must have been 30 teams there or something. So we did incredibly well there. Yeah.
And just focusing on the GB athletes, so there's a particular strength in prone paddling.
The prone people were the people who won our medals for us. You had Andrew Bart actually won silver in the prone distance and the tech, so incredible. And then a medal for Jessica and Molly. So the 4 medals that were won by the prone paddlers. So amazing results from them.
So absolutely fantastic. Hector came 5th in the junior tech, and Blue came 8th in the long distance. And did really well, 6th overall. So a great performance. Okay, well look, there's one big event that we've got to still talk about. That's the ICF, but we'll leave the race scene just for the moment. But we're not abandoning it entirely because earlier I got to chat with 2022's APP champion, 2022 SUP Connect Woman of the Year, April Zilg. And I started by asking her about 2023 and whether she felt that her performance this year and her activity this year was a change in direction or just a pause for breath following her years on the international SUP circuit.
Definitely a pause and definitely a change in paddling discipline. There's no shortage of things I want to do or I want to accomplish in the paddling world. And for the better part of the last 12 years, I've been working towards and competing at very similar events year after year after year. And something that I've never done was like truly dedicate my time and my efforts to outrigger canoe and not just solo OC1 or V1 outrigger canoe, but paddle as a part of a team with five other people in an OC6 or a V6 where you have to change your stroke a little to like match them. You have to train at the same level and on the same schedule as these other women. You have to consider those different personalities when you're in the boat. I've never been a really good team sport person. I'm just a go out by myself, put my head down and grind, kind of get my work done kind of person. But I felt like I was missing out on something having never
Mm.
paddled as a part of a team. So I just kind of took this year knowing what I had planned to focus on that. So back in January, February, I tried out for the USA Women's Open Outrigger 6-person team to go to the World Championships in Samoa. The United States has never won that race, especially in not for the women. So we really did want to win, and we had a really good team of amazing women that we put together. Brandy put together. It's not like, oh, I scratched the itch, it's over. It's if a team of that caliber comes together again, I would jump at the opportunity. It's hard for me sometimes. This is going to sound like so butthead. Um, I very rarely find a team that I like. I you get excited to
Mm.
work with. Like if at a certain level of paddling, it's fun to work with any team. Don't get me wrong. Like I love paddling with teams, but like if you're going to go somewhere and compete to win, and that's something that the other five in the people in the boat
Mm.
are also feeling, then that's very motivating. You don't want to be the hardest working person in the boat. You want to be everyone's peer. Like you want to be equal to everyone else in your team. So if if it so happens or it comes to pass that another amazing team like that one forms with just paddlers of that caliber, I would love to be on that team. Unfortunately, for where I live out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and so solo individual sports, that it's just easier for me because there's no one here to
Mm.
paddle with or to train with. Um, and so I will likely, you'll see more of me back in individual and solo sport events because there is no team here. Instead of traveling to world tour events in 2023, I just traveled back and forth to go and train with the team. So my travel budget went to being with the team and competing with the team instead of going to my
Yes.
individual events.
Well,
So that was a choice I
absolutely. So
made.
I then asked her about the 12 days of fitness, which is well worth a look for any paddler.
I started it, I think I've been doing that for 7 years now. It's always been 25 days of fitness. And I share a strength training move for paddlers to do in the gym in the off season. So the point is to share the moves that I've found the most valuable in my paddling career that build like the best muscle balance. I know we've gone talking at length, and don't get me off on a tangent about the balance of push and pull muscles in the body for injury prevention, and especially distance paddlers looking to like not have any tweaks or pulls in their skeletal muscular system. But I just want to share each year moves that are applicable to paddlers. One year I did travel friendly fitness because I was on the road pretty much all of December. So I used towels and bands and things in my suitcase to display how you can still get a good strength training workout in as a paddler, whether you're on the road or able to access your gym. I think a lot of people that get into paddling maybe see it as more of an endurance sport, but it is a power endurance sport, and how much power we're able to apply to our blade each and every stroke matters. Yes, you have to apply that power over a duration, so it is endurance, but it is very specifically power endurance. There's not a lot of sports that power comes into, like a truly power endurance sport, the way paddling does. Because you hit a tide or the wind, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, gee, I wish I had more power. And if you're not doing that in the gym, if you're not doing a lot of these moves, then you're going to lack that power. So you can have all the endurance in the world, but strength and your brain's ability to recruit more muscle fibers, which is something you directly train in the gym, is of vital importance. This year is modified fitness because of my expecting like my modification. So yeah, Corey and I are expecting our first, maybe only, I don't know, child January 21st. So a little over a month away. And so I can't, there's a lot of moves that I can't do right now. So it was like, and I didn't, I saw my, my normal 25 days and I'm like, no, I'm not doing 25 days this year. It's not going to happen. So I went with 12 days because that's another common Christmas thing. So we're doing the 12 days of fitness, and it is recovery and or modification. So if you have an injury and you're working back, or you can't lift weight as heavy as you typically can, or you're coming back after injury, or you do have a big old, pregnant belly in your way, it doesn't matter, but there's still things you can be doing to keep yourself active and keep yourself healthy, and actually speed the recovery if you are looking at recovering. I very much valued training throughout my pregnancy, and competing at the VAA World Championships at 5 months was, I was a little worried about it at first, but I was able to maintain my training load up through that. Some of my sessions did become naps, but training's training, right?
We're both paid up members of the April fan club here, and frankly, I had such a good time last year talking to her in the SUP FM book club episode. I didn't think the year was complete without hearing from her.
Oh, I think it's lovely. We've not had much contact with April this year, but we're big fans of April. She's got some exciting stuff coming up, that's for sure, in her personal and hopefully her racing life as well. But she's a proper athlete, and her videos. It's nice to see her back on social media briefly, but she's really always one to watch, April, just for fun. And we've met her, and obviously she's done a few clinics that we're involved in. She's a lot of fun, but her knowledge is supreme. And I know that you guys share your nerdery of stuff.
Love a bit of nerdery. And actually, I noticed she had quite a prolonged name check during the last Paddler Standing broadcast, where they talked about her depth of knowledge and continuous curiosity around sort of sports and physiology and so on. So we didn't mention that in our chat, but I just need to remind her of that. This year, we tragically lost Mark Slater, who was one of the original racers and paddlers in the UK. And he was a real one-off endurance paddler. He was a proper unit. He wouldn't have looked out of place on a rugby field. But he was also an all-round, softly spoken, nice guy with some serious grit. And Sarah, I know you wrote a testimonial to him in SUP Mag UK. But I also got to speak to Ryan James, who is another of the originals and a very close friend of Mark's.
It must have been 13, 14 years ago. So I met him at a Base Up training event where Base Up had about 6 members in the original. So Nick, Pete, Matt French, myself and Mark, really. So there was me turned up with a Mini with a K15 on the top of it on a soft rack and a pair of Ugg boots and a pair of shorts. And then Mark turned up in his big van, in the same sort of attire. So the fact we were both in shorts in the middle of winter, we kind of clicked instantly, really. So it was really good to find someone that also didn't really suffer in the cold. I think Nick, Matt, and Pete were quite surprised about that. As they were in full winter suits and me and him were in shorts and then maybe a wetsuit vest, hoping not to fall in. It was just big beaming smile, and I came obviously from a triathlon cycling background, so I had no idea what the thing was really when it first started. So all of them, especially Mark, were so welcoming and would just turn up to anything. I would not see Mark for maybe months on end because a lot of times he spent some time away traveling at markets to his bag shop stuff, and it was always like we hadn't ever left. I mean, we went traveling loads together as well, which was epic. It was always part of the gang, the SUP gang and the surf gang. So they always turned up whether we were going west or we were going out to Morocco or to Portugal or to California for I've forgotten the name now, Pacific Paddle Games, or as it was then, Battle of the Paddle. We were always in rival brands as well, which is always hilarious because always comparing boards and stuff like that. So it was great fun. It was basically the acceptance was there from them all, not just Mark, but Mark especially. It just had that northern friendly, completely just hug every time. It wasn't a handshake; it was a hug every time. So if you were slightly backwards but coming forwards, you got that rinse right out of you straight away with a big hug from the big man. Yeah. He was just the funniest thing was he was a ruthless competitor, so hyper competitive, much like myself, and but you would never have known it. So there was no attitude, or it didn't look like he was competitive at all. So, but all the time, if he came paddling past you, which invariably right at the beginning he did. He would just be there, like almost like it would be like it was like toothache. He would just be grinding you down all the time, and he'd just be there and thereabouts. And then if you made a mistake, he'd capitalise that on it all the time. So the amount of races I lost to him from making mistakes, and he could just read water so well. I mean, he was proficient in the canoe, on the SUP, on the surf, like longboard, shortboard. He would on a prone paddleboard as well. Obviously, he did a massive thing from, I don't know if you're aware, from Portland to Sandbanks, and then which he outrigger canoed, and then back he supped, and then came back again on a prone board. So he went from Portland, Sandbanks, back, and then back again, right the way through the night as well. So he was just is mental. The stuff that he did was just like beyond. I mean, he did love the 11 Cities tour as well. So he loved it. He just loved going out and just doing it. Devises to Westminster, he did as well on his own. And but didn't announce it. He just went and did it. So it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a big thing about like social media attention. It was nothing about, he would never announce these things. You would hear about it after. Like you said about the Isle of Wight trip. I mean, he went round, got lost, went into Forley refinery. They told him, "Yeah, you're definitely in the wrong place, mate." And then he paddled back again with a bit of water and a camelback. And it took him the whole night. We met him on the beach in the morning, and he just stepped off, went, "Yeah, that was good, mate." And it was just like it was nothing. But he just went out and did these challenges the whole time. It was amazing guy to know, an amazing guy to be friends with and to drink with, to compete with, to travel with. Yeah, it was always great. I mean, we went traveling a lot, so to take this is the type of guy that he was. So my background is in physiology and sports science, so about the body and stuff that I'm really aware of. And we went traveling on a surf trip to Portugal. There was about 8 of us on the trip, and unknowingly he'd separated one of his rotator cuff muscles completely off the bone, and he still went out surfing. He slept upright because it was too painful for him to lay down. He paddled one arm into the waves, and we're talking double overhead at a break called Sagres in Portugal. So that's the type of guy he was. It was like he wouldn't let anything stop him, and so it's like when you look back at that what he did, he just didn't want to stop. He did it. He just kept on doing it and kept on doing it. Whatever the barrier was, he found some way of overcoming it. So that's really, I think that's to end on is just to look at how he lived his life. It was just phenomenal. From his legacy perspective, it was just really that he just did everything. It wasn't about what he would get out of it. It was just about getting the challenge and just dealing with the challenge, just like what he unfortunately he suffered with right from the end. That you never knew that there was anything wrong at all. It wasn't as if he hid the illness. It was about him just cracking on with life. He was just doing it. He never stopped. He couldn't wait for the treatment to progress far enough that he could get back swimming again and get back surfing again. So he was just relentless in his ability just to live life to the fullest and live life every day. Even before he knew that he was ill, that's how he lived his life. He took every opportunity, did everything that he wanted to do, just for personal achievement, just so that he could say, "Yeah, I've done that. Let's give it a go. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it." And that's the most amazing thing that you can take from his legacy. That he never stopped. He never stopped grinding. He never stopped living his life. I mean, he had a life that no one, but apart from probably guys in my inner circle, that he lived like 3 lives in one. In the period that he was on this earth for, he lived like 3 lives at least. And that's what we can celebrate about it. That's what I try to do is that you celebrate what he did and what he achieved and how he lived his life. And if you've got to live your life like that, you can't let things get you down when you witness that firsthand as well.
Sarah, we were both there on the beach for Mark's memorial, and I don't think either of us were surprised by the huge attendance and the distances that people had travelled to get there. And I know there was a paddle out a month later as well, which was sort of equally attended. But and you saw Mark on the race scene, didn't you? What were your impressions of him as a character, and what came out of the testimonials that you put together?
Mark, what a lovely guy. I mean, back when I was racing, I started in sort of 2012, I guess. He was there, Ryan was there, Pete Holiday. This was just the boys, and they were a proper little gang of boys. And he's just, as you say, he's just, he looked a beast. He's a big guy and very strong. Didn't look like, your Blue Ewers of this world, just a beast, but so gentle, very northern, but so gently spoken and softly spoken. He could race. I mean, he was just such a strong paddler. So he was always up there. He was always up there on the podium. I was very lucky to be able to write that testimonial. I put it to SUPMag that somebody should, and they said, "Well, why don't you? You knew him." So really honoured to be able to, and I didn't know him that well. So my first thought was, let's get the people who knew him really well to write about him. And all of them almost wrote the same thing. I mean, it's a really lovely piece to read if you want to, look it up and read it. It's got some great photos of him as well. Some going back, messing about with Jay Manning and I mean, he's just one of the OGs, of the sport in the UK. And I know he did a couple of international things as well. But on the whole, most people said, looked a beast, but just the most beautiful, softly spoken. But, as soon as he started paddling, he started doing endurance events. He started pushing himself. He just got on and did things that he didn't really have a clue of what he was doing. I mean, one of his paddles, he was picked up by a fishing boat because he'd got lost and didn't really know where he was, and the tide was going a different way. So he thought, I better learn about the tides. We talk about safety now, but he wasn't being. He was a strong man. I just guess he thought he had the confidence to be able to do these things. But everybody sort of just said the same about him, and that meeting on the beach and just seeing all those people who, you knew him too. Everybody knew Mark. He was such a big part of the race scene. I was, there for sort of 5 years, and a big part of Base Up, huge part of their club right from the beginning. So they would have really felt his loss deeply. And his girls used to just be, I hate to use the word dragged, but they were dragged to all the events, but they loved it. He looked after them beautifully, made sure they were okay, had an ice cream in their hand, really looked after them. And those girls have grown up and they're lovely girls, and they were delighted with the the piece in the magazine. It's just just a lovely man. One of my anecdotes is doing the first SUP bike run event at Wimbleball Lake. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I couldn't really run. I couldn't really ride a bike, and I could only paddle, and that was like the smallest bit of it. But I was watching Mark, and he finished his bike ride and he went to start his run, and he just couldn't walk. He just couldn't walk. His calves had seized up, and his calves were massive. And I said, "Oh no, he's not going to be able to do it." And he just hobbled off up the hill, and off he went and did his 10K. He just wouldn't let that stop him. So huge man physically, huge heart, beautiful person. What a loss in 2023.
Yeah,
really very, very sad.
Yeah, very, very sad loss, and it's an honour to pay tribute.